just want to start with our basic presentation that is about what policies the government have announced for people who are suffering due to this evacuation uh, due to the wildfire in the Jasper area. So there are some special uh, policies in place which you should be aware of. If you are affected by any of those, you can take benefit of this policy. I would first share the presentation, and that would be okay. Yes, please. So we are Osuji and Smith lawyers, basically. Just a brief introduction. We are an exclusive division within the Osuji and Smith lawyers where we practice only immigration law. And we provide all sort of services starting from personal immigration to the employer-employee immigration, businesses. Somebody wants to open businesses, somebody has refugee claim, somebody is facing deportation, somebody is facing removal orders. Anything related to immigration, we can provide all those solutions. And today we are presenting specifically on the open work permit options for Jasper Wildfire Evacuees. First of all, before I discuss all the details, I really want to feel sorry for everyone who are facing difficulties in their lives, personal and professional lives, due to this event. And if anyone needs any assistance, as Youngin said, even their organization, we as a team and I as a personally am always ready to help somebody who is facing any difficulty in such situation. And I don't expect anyone to pay us for being out of this situation. So we have a diverse team. We have basically uh, we work mostly remotely. Some of our lawyer is in Yukon, somebody is in Dubai. I'm in Calgary, mostly traveling here and there, but we have a team we have set up in a way that we can provide services from anywhere in the world. And one disclaimer, as a lawyer, I want you to understand that the topic that we are discussing, it is only for information purposes, for education purposes. I'm not providing any legal advice to anyone, so that in case tomorrow you rely on it or you skip any part that we discuss in this presentation and you face any difficulty or any refusal, we will not be responsible. However, we have tried our best to keep track of all the important portions, that all the steps that you must follow in submitting a successful and a complete application. So broadly, before we jump into the exact like how to start the work permit application step, I want to discuss a little bit about policies. What are the open work permit options? And the Alberta PNP, what announcements they have made with regards to the Jasper wildfires and what concessions they are providing to the workers, and what are the measures and how you can expedite the process. If somebody is applying under these programs or under this policy, it's an expedited policy, which means you don't have to wait like others for months to get a approval of your work permit. You can easily get it as soon as within 2 weeks. So the very first question that I asked everyone in this meeting was, is there anyone who submitted their application based on a job offer already to Alberta, which means their application was submitted to the PNP program, but it was not approved yet. So are you still in the processing? The good news is the Alberta PNP announcement, they have specified that for 1 year, we will keep your file on hold, which means usually they want you to be employed when you apply, and they want you to continue employed as long as they are processing your application. But due to this unfortunate circumstances, they have provided an exception to this rule, which means if somebody submitted their application and that application has not been approved, the PNP program from these evacuation areas will allow you 1 year time so that you can change your employer and get employment in the same job, and you can still get your permanent residency approval. So this is especially for those who had already submitted their applications and they are not pending. It may not be relevant for anybody else. Next is the IRCC has announced a special policy, which means anybody affected by these wildfires can take benefit of some services for free. They don't have to pay for it. Those services include, you can, if somebody had a citizenship certificate they lost in the fire, or somebody could not collect their permanent residency card, or somebody lost their work permits, study permits, or any authorization document, including passports. If you are affected and you lost due to these wildfires, you can apply for any of those documents, the replacement of those documents, and you are not required to make any payment. So this payment is sure. I will share this presentation in the end with CCIS, and they can send it to everyone because they have the database of everyone attending. But these special measures are in place from July 19th to 30th of November. So to take benefit of this policy that you can get your documents replaced for free of cost, you have to apply within this time period. I will only touch this one little bit. It is for somebody who was staying in that area. Let's say somebody was visiting, they had their visitor visa in Jasper, and they were with their family and they were asked to evacuate and leave immediately. They lost their work permits or maybe visitor visas. And for those people, they can apply for a new visitor record in case they want to stay longer. But if they lost their other documents, they can apply for free for the replacement of their documents. Again, there is a timeline. You have to understand that this policy is limited time policy, 19th of July onwards to 30th of June. Oh, sorry, 30th of November. The most important and the topic for discussion today is for workers. So why the government is providing you the option for open work permit? Why is it so important? It is, some people already know it, but some may not know it. So Canada has a temporary foreign worker program under which a Canadian employer can hire a foreign worker to work in Canada. We call this as a temporary foreign worker program. And mostly under this program, the employees get a work permit authorization once they get a job offer supported by an LMIA. So this process is basically the employee is tied to the job offer, and the job offer is tied to the place, like the location, to the title and the employer. So which means a foreign worker on LMIA supported or closed work permit job offer is allowed only to work at a specific location with the employer named on their work permit and nowhere else. So that is why we call it a closed work permit. In Alberta, we have two different programs such as Alberta Opportunity Stream and Alberta Tourism and Hospitality Stream. Both of these programs, they nominate people, workers from Alberta to permanent residency, provided they are working on a closed work permit, like the LMIA supported work permit. As a result of the wildfires, some people who were already working there, some may have just completed 3 months, somebody may be just about to start his job, or somebody may be about to complete 1 year work experience. So those people will face difficulty because if they stay on a closed work permit, if an employer lost their restaurant or if the employer lost their hotel, it will take more than a year to recover and restore that building or place of work, so that the foreign workers do not face hardship. The Alberta PNP program, they have announced it that okay, If somebody is from those areas where they were asked to evacuate from, they can take an open work permit. We will create an exception for them, which means if these employees get an open work permit and then they work for somebody in a different area, this open work permit will make them eligible to apply for permanent residency. Only this is the exception. Otherwise, in those two streams, Alberta Opportunity Stream and the Hospitality and Tourism Stream, the employee was supposed to be working on a closed work permit. But this is the one-time exception they have created. So that will allow you to work for a different employer outside of the community. At the same time, your work permit, your work experience will be eligible work experience under these two streams. Now, the most important, and that's what I was asked by CCIS, that I have to guide people exactly how they can apply for these work permits. We will share this presentation with you in the end. And if you want to make a use of this presentation, I have shared the link. Basically, you will just click on the link provided. This link will take you to the IRCC website. That website we will show you step by step in the next PDF presentation where you can follow the steps. But it will take you directly to the website where you have to create your account and apply for your open work permit. Why you need to apply for this open work permit? So that your status in Canada remains legal and you are authorized to work for somebody else. Again, as we discussed, even for this work permit, when you apply from a closed work permit to open work permit, you are not required to make any fee payment to the government. No fee is payable under this special policy. And as I stated, usually if somebody makes an application to IRCC for a work permit application, it may take 2 months, 3 months, or even 4 months to process it. But because this is more like a crisis situation for somebody facing very difficult situation, losing their employment, maybe losing their savings, they do not have an accommodation, where do they go? The IRCC has created a special web form. I will guide you how to submit it. But once you create your portal, you submit your application, the next step is then you have to click on this link. When you go on this link, it will ask you a question. Tell us about your situation. You have to select and type this code in that column. And then they will take your application in expedited processing unit, which means they will process it way faster than anybody else. So which means they will process these applications first and then they will put other applications on hold. Now, coming to the step-by-step guide, like how you can fill out the details, how you can create an account, and what should be written in which section of that form so that you do not make a false application or you do not make a mistake in your application. If you make a mistake on your application, it can be rejected. So we have created a sample application which you can use. We can share this one as well with you after the presentation, and it will cover all the steps involved in creating your account and submitting your application. First, let's go with creating your account. That how can you create your account? So here it is. Let me know if everyone can see my screen here. Okay. So let's go with this is first disclaimer is we have used just a random hypothetical scenario where an individual who is a single person who came to Canada on a closed work permit and he does not have a US visa, and just for the purpose of this guide or the step-by-step guide for you, we have use that he is from Philippines, but the situation may be different for different people. Some people are just all by themselves, they are single, some are with their spouses, some are with their children as well. So please make sure when you follow this guide is specially designed for a single applicant who is not married and who is on a work permit in Canada. In my presentation, I have already provided you with a link. If you will click on a link, you will come on this page. When you will create your account, the first thing when you select on that, it will ask you what you want to do. You will select the option apply to come to Canada. This is the first step that you have to follow in creating your account online. And under that, it will ask you, do you have any reference code or not? You don't have reference codes. So what means you will next step is to go and select on visitor visa, study permit or work permit. So anyone be if somebody is looking to renew their visitor status or somebody is looking to renew their study permit or somebody is trying to apply for an open work permit, all three categories have to select this option. And then the next page, the website will take you on a next page, next tab that will ask you these following question. This is specifically for workers. So it will ask you, what do you want to do in Canada? You will select, I want to work. Then depending, it will ask you, you want to work for less than 6 months or more than 6 months. Because this special policy is giving you an option to apply for an open work permit, we have used this as an example so that you get more than 6 months of work permit. So which means if your original work permit was expiring maybe by September, under this policy, you can still renew it further longer than that. And on the passport section, because in this example, we are using the candidate to be from Philippines, you have to select your own country code. And what is the current country of residence? The current country of residence is Canada. Because this applicant was a single, so they were asking, do you have a family member who's a Canadian citizen or permanent resident or not? We are saying no, he's a single person coming from Philippines. And then based on use your passport to write your date of birth. You may have two different documents. They may reflect different date of births. Rely on what is posted on your passport, if that is correct. And then after you submit next, it will take to you the next step. It will ask you, what is your status in Canada? This example is for workers, but if somebody was a visitor, they will select visitor. If somebody was a study permit holder, they will select a student. Moving to the next step, not everyone in Canada can apply for these work permit extensions or open work permits. There are some specific requirements, only then they can submit this work permit application. So that is why on the next page, the IRCC website will try to verify if you are eligible to apply or not. Because your policy is one of these policies that you are applying under special policies. So they will ask you the very first thing, does any of the following apply to you? You have to select yes. Do not get into too many technicalities. This is the first step you have to follow. You have to select yes, only then you will be able to move forward. Are you a spouse or partner of somebody who invited you? Because this example is for a single person, so we selected no. And are you a spouse of a person who is a government employee or who is a professional sportsman? We selected no. Are you a spouse of a diplomat? We selected no. So when we select basically yes over here, it will allow us to open the next window. If it is a no, we will not be able to move forward. So make sure you select yes over there. Are you spouse of a person who holds a study permit? We are saying no, because this candidate in the example is a single person. So status is never married, single, province or destination is Alberta. So once you fill out these initial questions and you select next, this is the result that you will get on the online link. It will ask you, you may be eligible to apply for temporary resident visa or you are eligible for open work permit option. So you will go with the open work permit option. Because this is a special policy, that is why you are allowed to apply for it. Otherwise, the only option would have been to apply for a temporary resident visa. Once this is done, it will ask you a few more questions. Are you accompanying a family member who has a status in Canada? You have to say no, because in this example, we say this applicant was single. Most important is they want to know when was your status expiring. So your status has to expire within those specified days. Remember in my presentation, I stated from July specific date to 30th of November. So if your status was expiring in between these dates, only then you are eligible to extend your open work permit or apply for an open work permit. If it was expiring before that, you were not eligible. So that means in simple words that on 19th of July 2024, those people who had a valid study permit, visitor visa, or a work permit, and that was expiring before 30th of November, they are the people who can take benefit of this policy. So make sure, so for an example, we have used this, like this person's work permit was expiring on 1st of September 2024. If somebody performed their medical exam, let's say some people, some specific occupations here, they want you to do your medical exam first before you can get a work permit. So if somebody was working in mostly in the Jasper area, I presume mostly people were in tourism and hospitality industry, not in health services, but still there would be people in health services. For people in hospitality or tourism sector, they are not required to have a valid medical examination performed before start working. So that is why we used here no, that this person was not required. But if somebody voluntarily did their medical examination within last 12 months, there is no harm in selecting it as a yes. Yes, I performed it. The difference will be the open work permit that you will receive with a valid medical results will have no conditions, which means if you performed medical exam in last 12 months, your new open work permit will allow you to work for anyone in any stream, including the following streams. But if you did not perform any medical exam, you cannot work in these occupations. That means your open work permit will have a restriction that you are allowed to work with anybody except for these occupations. So therefore, if your original job was not requiring you to have a the medical exam performed, you will select next. Still, because the new open work permit will have a restriction on the work permit, it will ask you, is any of the following jobs apply to you? Like, will you work in any of these occupation? If yes, then they will ask you to do your medical examination. But if you're not going to work in any of these occupation, you will still select no and move forward and type next. You will go on the next page. So do you want to submit an application for family member? This is for those people who are applying more than one person at a time. In this one, we are using only a single applicant. So if you're applying for yourself, you are not hiring, any immigration agent or a lawyer, you don't have to give access of your application to anyone. So you have to select no, which means the immigration will not share any of the details about your application with any person. You can authorize to someone to contact IRCC on your behalf, or maybe you want to your employer to know about your situation, or maybe somebody may have limited English language skills. They cannot communicate with IRCC. They want somebody from their family or friends to help them with the application, or maybe calling later on. They can grant authorization to release the information of their application to this person. But for that, there is a specific form that you have to fill out, sign, and only then IRCC will communicate with somebody on your behalf. So the next question it will ask you, have you completed any fingerprints in last 10 years? Yes, because most of you or the work permit holders on closed work permit, they all performed their biometrics when they applied for their original work permit, and they also submitted a like photograph at the time of their biometrics. So this is important under this policy. Usually the answer to this question is yes, that yes, I will be paying my application fee for this application. But because this is a special policy, you have to select, it will give you 3, 4 options. You have to select no, I'm exempt from paying the fee for this application. Only under this policy, you are exempt from making any fee payment to IRCC for issuance of your work permit, study permit, or visitor record. So the next question it will ask you, are you able to make a digital copy of your document with scanner or camera? It is not mandatory that your documents or your passport, they have to be scanned by a professional scanner. You can easily take a picture on your phone. You can upload that uh, JPG file, that photo into the online portal. The portal will accept that application. But make sure whenever you take a photo, it should not be blurry, which means the officer could read your date of birth, like clearly read your date of birth and details on your passport, on your documents. So when you will complete this step, after this, it will give you the summary of all the questions that you have answered. So all the questions that we just discussed up till now, it will give you a summary of your questions and answers. You have to carefully review all these questions and answers. If anything is incorrect, the option is on the top here, right? You can click on this option and it will open that specific portion of the questions, which means it will take to you that page directly where you want to change your information. For all the different sections, they have different option to review and edit your form. Like for this one, it is on the top. For the next one, it is here. And for all the sections, they have provided you the option to edit your answers. So please, when you complete all these steps answering your questions, make sure you read this last portion carefully, because this is the information based on which the immigration portal will generate application requirements for you. Let's say you filled out everything correctly, followed all the steps, made no mistake. This is how your portal will look like. It will give you the document checklist, and these are basically the documents that you have to provide IRCC for applying your open work permit. The first is application to change conditions. I will review this entire form with you after this so that you know what to write in which section, what information is required, what you can just skip it, and what is very important. In the passport section, you have to attach your current passport. Some nationalities, such as I'm from India, we have a front page, we have a photo, date of birth, and the end page, we also have our father's name or parent's name and the date of birth. Oh, sorry, the address. So if your passport has only one page with your photo, just click the photo of your first page. I will also suggest, if your visa or work permit was stamped on your passport, take a photo of that as well. You can add 2, 3 images into one and upload everything in the passport section. So take a photo of your passport and whatever document you had before stamped on your passport, or maybe the stamp you entered in Canada, upload it. Not mandatory, but we use it in the practice so that it shows that you entered legally in Canada. Sometimes you never know, some officer may have doubt for anything. And next is important one, proof of fee exemption. I have explained on the next page, but whatever I explained on the next page, basically you will make one document and upload that document in this section, proof of fee exemption. If you did your biometrics, which most of you did in last 10 years, you are not required to pay your biometric fee. But for your application, you were required, but due to the policy, you are exempt. So we will explain there why you are not required to pay fee. And digital photo. If you have your good photo taken from a professional photographer, wonderful, but don't spend money on it. It's not mandatory. You can stand against any wall, which is like not too dark. Your face you should not wear any specs. Just have a simple photo taken with your phone and you can upload that. That is also sufficient. This portion is not mandatory. I would ask you to skip it. Basically, it is for those people when they apply for their first work permit from outside Canada. You're applying inside Canada, so no need to touch this portion. It automatically generates this optional document section in the online portal, but that does not mean you have to fill it out. You have to skip this one. And this client information, this is basically everything else about you. If you want to upload more, some people want to tell more things or want to upload more documents. Maybe their family is a big family, they want to attach multiple documents. They can attach all their documents into one PDF file, JPG file, or Word file, and then they can upload those documents in this section, client information. It's not mandatory for you to fill out this section. We usually as lawyer use this portion when we are doing applications for people from outside Canada, such as in the other portion, sometimes we do not get that much space to upload the documents or submission. So we just use this space as an extra space to upload additional information. But especially for you people applying under this policy, I do not feel the need that you have to upload anything extra into this. Just provide what they're asking, that is sufficient. Because we selected you are exempt from fee, it will show that your fee is total. So make sure on this page at the end, you should be looking at this number 0, that you are not making any fee payment to IRCC. So this tab we were discussing proof of fee exemption. Basically, this is what you need to do. You have to open a Word document. If most of you can use your computers, or even if you cannot use your computer, you can even write on a paper with a pen on a paper, and you can just explain it, that how you were affected. For example, if I have to explain it, I would start with, this is my name, this is my work permit number. I started working with this employer from this date onwards, and then this was my work location. I was working these many hours, and suddenly this fire happened and we were ordered to evacuate from this place. Then the next paragraph I will write. If you are typing on computer, please bold this line. Otherwise, with your pen, you can write in all capital, I am exempt from paying fee, exact lines under the WFF 2024 special measures. And at the next paragraph, you can write details of the employer, name of the employer, business name, location, phone number, that's fine. Some people may have different requirements. If somebody was living there already, to show additional proofs, they can attach their driver's license, utility bills, or if somebody was coming as a visitor, they have to show a receipt that I lost my documents or maybe my passport when I was staying in the hotel. So they may need to give additional proofs. But you mostly for workers applying for a work permit, explain your situation, when you started working, what is your work permit number, details of your employer, and then write this. I am exempt from this. I would suggest if you are typing it, bold it, underline it. But if you are writing it with your pen, then make sure you write it in capitals. And one proof that you are the original workplace where you actually were working is not operational due to wildfire. So the proof can be you can request a letter from your employer that your employer can write, attest it, because everything about this application you are saying about yourself. So in order to authenticate some of the information, the officers want these additional documents. So if your business is not operational due to wildfires, you can either get a letter from your employer simply writing your name, that you were the employee working there, then this evacuation happened, and now this business is not operational. He has to sign, he has to put his name and phone number. It's not written here, but I would highly recommend that you get this letter from your employer. On their letterhead, it should have their phone number and email. In case an officer wants to verify, they should be able to directly verify. Or a media article. Maybe your employer was somebody from Ontario and he just left from the place. It's hard for you to go and find your employer. And you are like, where do I go? Maybe you can take an announcement copy from the city council or from the community area, any officer who was appointed, or any publication online in the newspaper or anywhere where it shows that this area was evacuated due to wildfires. Even that is a sufficient proof to show that on that date you were there and you are facing difficulty as a reason of wildfire. So please, I repeat it again, explain about yourself, list the name of your employer and the location and his address, and you have to write it. I am exempt from the payment of fee due to this reason. You have to write the exact words. And then, as a proof that you were on that day in the affected area, either a letter from your employer or a media article. That's it. Those things are sufficient. And then in the end, it will, at the bottom, it will ask you to sign electronically. Basically, you will type your name and then it will show at the bottom that submit this application. As soon as you click the button, submit your application will be submitted to the IRCC. You cannot make any changes to your application after you submit it. So please make sure, review everything about your application. Basically, the most important document is this IMM 5710. I am coming to this in my next slide, but until here, uh, you have to follow all these steps. One most important factor is when you will be uploading your documents, each tab that we just discussed here, that has a maximum space of 4 MB. So which means if you are just uploading your passport, that is fine. But let's say if you make a high resolution photograph, which is like 15 MB, you cannot upload it. It will show you an error. No, you cannot submit it. You cannot upload it. So if that is the case, you are getting this error again and again, make sure you check your file size. It should be 4 MB or smaller. It cannot be larger than 4 MB. And let's say if you have already scanned documents with you, which are more than 4 MB, you can go online, just search compress my PDF or compress my JPG file. Whatever is your file format, you can compress it and it will come down 90% of the time lower than 4 MB. And then you can upload that document. back to this section. Now, the last and most important, the one doc form that will get you the work permit is this form. So we discussed the policy, we discussed the steps that you have to take to create a portal. And once that portal is created, I showed you what sections will open up and what you need to upload in each section. The most important document or the form is this one. If this form is not filled correctly, you will not get open work permit. Or if this is incomplete or incorrect, there may be very difficult consequences for you. Let's say you do not declare everything truthfully. The officer can reject your application. At the same time, the officer can say you are misrepresenting. They can issue you a procedural fairness letter, which is a serious offense, which means you may be banned from Canada for next 3 years or 5 years if you make a misrepresentation. So please carefully read the steps. This is basically your UCI number. You will have it on your work permit. On the work permit, there will be a number. If you do not understand this number, you can skip this part. It's not mandatory that you have to fill out this portion. You can leave it. In this form, all the steps that are mandatory are starred here, like this one. If it is starred one, that means you are required to fill out this detail. There is no star on UCI one, so you can even skip it if you don't understand it. So it will give you options English or French, and then applying for one of the following categories. So you have to select this option, applying for a work permit for the first time or with a new employer. So this is the category under which you will be applying under this special policy. The next step is your personal details. You have to fill out these forms carefully. Some people only have their given name on their passport. Some have given name and last name on their passport. If you have given and last name separately, wonderful, write it accordingly. But if somebody has just the given name, not the last name, then you will write your full name in this section, family name. Then your complete given name will come in the family name, and this given name section, you will leave it empty. Okay, I repeat it again. If you have only the given name on your passport, type it in the family name section and leave it empty here. That's it. And if you use any other name or you used any other name at the time of applying your previous work permit, you can select it yes. But if your name was same, just select it no and go to the next section. Here you have to type about your sexuality and about your date of birth and your place of birth, country of, the country where you were born and your citizenship. So this is basically your birth country. This is your citizenship country. The most important for you will be the next one, current country of residence. You are in Canada on a work permit. You have to select these options carefully from to end. So your start date basically will be, look at your work permit. It will show the issuance date. So your issuance date is the from date and your end date is the to date. So please be careful that you write these dates carefully. Don't make a mistake. And if somebody has lived for more than 6 months in any other country, let's say this candidate, if this candidate lived outside of Philippines for more than 6 months in last 5 years, then he has to write where he lived, why he lived, what was his status, but otherwise selected no. We selected this candidate to be a single candidate, so he will write single, then automatically these columns will not show up because he is single. He is not required to write about the spouse details. Have you previously been married? This person was single, so we are selecting no. Language. What is your native language? You have to select that one over here. And are you able to communicate in English or French? Whichever is your most comfortable, you have to select one at least out of two because this is a starred information. So we have to write it. And then your passport number, the country of issuance, issuance date of your passport and expiry date of passport. Please remember you cannot be issued a work permit beyond the validity of your passport. So even if this policy allows you to renew your work permit, but if your passport is expiring 15 days later, you will not get a work permit. Your work permit can only be issued until the last day of your passport. National identity document. It will not apply to majority of the people. Very few countries issue nationality documents in addition to their passport. One of the example that I can give is in Pakistan. They give you a passport, they also give you a national identity document. So for those people, they have to write yes, and then they have to type their nationality document number as well. But majority of the people, they don't have to type it here. They will simply select no and move to the next section. US PR card, because in this example that we are using, this person has no US visa. He's from Philippines. We are selecting no. That is why this highlighted portion is the information that is not required. Contact information, very important. It looks like it's just a contact information, but no, your actual open work permit will arrive on this address. So please make sure you give your address, which is reliable. Don't make a mistake. Sometimes what mistake people make, they just put the street name. Everything else is correct, but they do not put the apartment number or the house number. Your work permit will never be delivered to you. Without your house number or apartment number, or if it is not written here, IRCC cannot come and find you. So make sure you give the address of somebody who is responsible, who can receive it on your behalf, and make sure your information is correct. And your residential address is same as your mailing address. You will select yes, give your phone number and your email. Please check your email so that if IRCC officer wants some additional information from you, it will go on this email. So make sure you check your spellings and your email is correct. Now on page number 3, coming to Canada, they will ask you details about your entry into Canada, that how you entered in Canada. Date of your original entry to Canada. Basically, the very first time when you entered Canada, you have to write that date over here. Somebody may have entered twice. Somebody may have entered once in January, once in March, and next time in April. Here, you have to write your very first entry for the first time. Over here, the date of your entry, and place is the airport you entered. For example, if you landed in Vancouver and then you drove to Calgary, then you will write Vancouver over here. But if you landed in Montreal first and then you landed in Calgary, you will still write over here because you first landed in Canada in Montreal. So you have to write the first place of your landing in Canada where your immigration happened. The original purpose of your coming to Canada, because this is for work permit holders, the original purpose of your visit was to work in Canada. And this is what we were discussing. If your date of place of entry into Canada is different from original, I said somebody have come in January, left and then came back again. So if you had a different entry date, then you have to write it again here, your most recent entry. You may have 4 entries. Always write first one here and the latest one here and the place here. But if you never left Canada after entering into Canada, that is fine. Then just leave it empty, this portion. And if applicable, you have to write about the document number. You all have your work permits at the top in the red section. There is a written as a number. They just write one number over there. I can show you after this thing, like what is where you find document number. Document number is just beneath that red texted just beneath that those red texted numbers, there is one like a number that you have to write it over here. Even if you cannot find it, skip it. Not a problem. Because it's not starred information, so which means even if you don't type it, you can move forward with it. This is what type of work permit you are applying for. You are applying for open work permit. This is what you will select. As soon as you select this option, it will not ask you any details about your employer. It will not ask you any details of your city, your job duties, your start date, because it is an open work permit. So that means you will not be required to provide any information. This one is, have you been issued a certificate under the PNP program? I asked in the beginning if somebody is waiting for PNP nomination. Nobody said yes. They said we are waiting to apply, but no, there is no pending application with the Alberta PNP. In the education section, write about your highest level of education and the employment history. You have to give your employment history for the past 10 years. So please make sure do not make any mistake here. You can use your original work permit application, use that, fill out everything. And let's say you are working in Canada. We have just given an example. You are working in Jasper. So in this section, you will write, I was working as a maybe cleaner. My employer name was ABC, city name was Jasper and Canada. And after that evacuation order, I'm not working, so I have to write it from the after the month and year. I have to write myself as employed. Do not write employed here because you are on a closed work permit. If you say I'm working somewhere else with somebody else, it's a problem. You're violating the conditions of your work permit. So make sure you write it as unemployed. And your 10-year history, if for some reason you cannot write all 10 years, you have to write it on a separate page. Maybe you can print this form twice and just fill out this section in the next form, or you can make a table on the Word document and fill out your details, but you have to give your 10 years full details of your employment. And this is where the people make misrepresentation, background information. Do not make any statement which is incorrect, because if any information is incorrect under this section, not only your work permit will be refused, you will be found inadmissible to Canada for misrepresentation. So make sure you answer these questions carefully. The first two are related to your health. If anything applies to you, write it yes and explain it. Otherwise, it's a no. Have you remained the validity of your status in Canada? The answer is no. Have you ever been refused a visa or permit or order to leave Canada or any other country? So do not confuse it that, oh, my Canada visa was never refused. They also ask or any other country. Let's say if your US visa was refused, but you don't write it, it can be a misrepresentation. But for this candidate, we used an example that he applied to no other country, got a work permit to Canada, he's in Canada. And this one, have you previously applied to remain or enter in Canada? It must be yes, because you are already in Canada on a work permit. So you have to tell here, applied for a work permit or applied for LMIA work permit in, let's say, April 2023, just write the month and year, or only the year is sufficient. But you have to tell how many times you applied. If you applied, let's say if you applied first, it was refused, you applied second time, then you have to write here, applied twice, successfully refused, received second time in April 2023. And this one, have you committed any offense or have you ever been arrested or convicted of any criminal offense in country? Make sure you give the truthful answer. It does not say you have been convicted. It says, have you been arrested? Maybe you were never charged, but you were arrested. So maybe you were not convicted, but you were just charged. So you have to give the details carefully. And have you served in military or in any defense? Answer it accordingly. Are you a member of any political party that promotes violence like certain terrorist groups? I'm sure nobody's there, but if somebody was, they have to select yes and explain it. Have you ever witnessed or participated in any ill treatment of prisoners or civilians? We decided to say no. This candidate was not in any of those activities. And this is again optional. This is basically data collection from IRCC. If you are comfortable, you can select yes, that can IRCC contact you in future to make their services better. I usually select it yes, that yeah, you can send me an email, I can give you my feedback. But if you're like, no, we don't want to receive anything, you can just select no. And here, signature of the applicant. You don't have to sign with any ink pen. Type your full name as on your passport. Select the date. It will pop up the today's date. And once everything is done over here, there will be an option. That option will be validate. You have to validate this form, otherwise you cannot upload this form. Once you select validate option over here, it will be in blue. It will show the barcode at the bottom of the page. And once that is done, at the top of the page, it will show validated yes. So your form has to be validated, only then you can apply and upload it in the online portal. If for some reason you miss or skip any important part like the start part, the form will show you the error that this information is missing. So you have to go there and check and fill it out. Until you fill out all the mandatory sections, you cannot fill out this form. And once this form says validated, that means you have done everything correctly. Then you can upload this form directly to your portal. Last thing is, when you will fill out this form, this is validated. Some of the Adobe systems, they do not allow you to save this document directly. So what you need to do is go to the menu section, save as this application under a different name or with the same name, but you can just write a new version or file and version, and then you can save it. Sometimes you may have this difficulty of saving this document directly. In that case, you have to save as this document and then upload into your online portal. So that is about following all these steps for applying for an open work permit under this special policy by the IRCC. And IRCC also announced, the Alberta PNP, they also announced that if somebody applied for their permanent residency and that application is pending, we will not reject it. We will hold it for 1 year. So they are giving you 1 year. On top of it, if you are applying for an open work permit only under this policy, the work experience that you will accumulate for next 6 months or 1 year, that work permit experience will be valid under Alberta Opportunity Stream and Alberta Tourism and Hospitality Stream. Other than this policy, no open work permit work experience is valid for these two PR program. So this may be the um, an opportunity out of, I would say, the difficult times. But if it is providing you an opportunity, you should make best use of it, because now it is allowing you to work anywhere with anyone, and your work experience will allow you to apply for permanent residency in Canada. So that's about me. Sorry, I went 10 minutes over the time, but if somebody have any questions, the general questions, I can definitely answer those questions. But specific questions, I cannot answer those questions, because for that you need to book a time with us. That would need a legal advice from us.
Thank
Yes,
you
Youngin, any
so
question for
much.
me?
Thank you so much, Karpashnik. We have some questions, like such as I just saw a question talking about since everyone who's in Calgary, they're just here being here as like a temporary kind of time, you know. So, those who are staying at hotels or temporary resident and then before they can go back to Jasper, they don't have like permanent kind of address to put in there. Like in that case, what can they do?
They can use the address of their friends, relative, or they can go to UPS store, get a virtual mailing address. Like you have to pay, I think, $20. You can have an address. Your mails can be delivered on those addresses. So they can use that, or they can use it, the address of any friend, family member, anyone. that is acceptable. Basically, the main purpose is where this document will be delivered. So you can provide any address.
Okay. Sounds good. And let's see. Just